It was a quiet, peaceful evening in the small town of Willowbrook. The sun had just set, casting a golden hue over the horizon, and the streets were bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. In one particular house, nestled at the end of a cul-de-sac, a strange and unsettling phenomenon was occurring. Every night, without fail, Dog, the family pet, would growl at the youngest child, 8-year-old Emily. The growls were low, menacing, and seemed to come from deep within Dog's throat. But why? What could possibly cause this loyal, loving pet to turn on the child he had known since she was a baby? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories and updates. The family was baffled. Dog had always been a gentle animal, protective of the family, and especially fond of Emily. He would follow her around the house, sleep at the foot of her bed, and even share his toys with her. But now, every night, as the clock struck 9 p.m., Dog would stand at the doorway of Emily's room, his fur bristling, his teeth bared, and let out a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down everyone's spine. At first, the family tried to dismiss it as a phase. Maybe Dog was just feeling protective, or perhaps he was reacting to some unseen threat. But as the days turned into weeks, the growling only intensified. Emily began to have nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night screaming, claiming that she saw shadows moving in her room. The family was at their wits' end. They consulted veterinarians, animal behaviorists, and even a pet psychic, but no one could explain Dog's strange behavior. Then, one fateful night, the truth was revealed. It was a stormy evening with thunder rumbling in the distance and rain lashing against the windows. The family had just finished dinner and were settling down for the night. As usual, Dog took his place at the doorway of Emily's room, his growls echoing through the house. But this time, something was different. Emily's older brother Jake decided to investigate. He grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached Dog, who was now growling louder than ever. As Jake shone the flashlight into Emily's room, he froze in terror. There in the corner of the room was a shadowy figure, hunched over and slowly moving towards Emily's bed. Dog's growls grew more intense, his body tense and ready to pounce. Jake's heart raced as he realized what was happening. Dog wasn't growling at Emily, he was growling at the shadowy figure that only he could see. With a courage he didn't know he had, Jake rushed into the room, shouting for his parents. The shadowy figure seemed to dissolve into the darkness as the rest of the family burst into the room. Dog stopped growling and let out a whimper, his body relaxing as if a great weight had been lifted. The family was in shock. They had always believed that Dog's growls were directed at Emily, but now they understood the truth. Dog had been protecting her all along. The shadowy figure, whatever it was, had been trying to harm Emily, and Dog had been the only one who could see it. From that night on, the growling stopped. Emily's nightmares ceased, and the family felt a sense of peace they hadn't experienced in months. Dog resumed his role as the loving, protective family pet, but the memory of those terrifying nights lingered. The family never spoke of the incident again, but they knew one thing for certain. Dog was more than just a pet. He was a guardian, a protector, and a true member of the family. Don't forget, subscribe this channel for more spine-chilling stories and updates. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this story and share it with your friends. Stay tuned for more thrilling content. The story of Dog and Emily is one that will send shivers down your spine. It's a tale of loyalty, bravery, and the unseen forces that sometimes lurk in the shadows. Dog, the family pet, was more than just an animal. He was a hero. Every night, as the clock struck 9 p.m., Dog would stand at the doorway of Emily's room, growling at something no one else could see. The family was terrified, not understanding why their beloved pet would turn on their youngest child. But as the nights went on, the growling only intensified. Emily began to have nightmares, waking up screaming about shadows in her room. The family consulted experts, but no one could explain Dog's behavior. It wasn't until a stormy night, when Emily's brother Jake decided to investigate, that the truth was revealed. Jake shone a flashlight into Emily's room and saw a shadowy figure moving towards her bed. Dog's growls were directed at this figure, not at Emily. The pet had been protecting her all along. The shadowy figure disappeared as the family rushed into the room and Dog's growling stopped. The family realized that Dog had been their guardian, protecting Emily from an unseen threat. From that night on, the growling stopped and the family felt a sense of peace. Dog resumed his role as the loving family pet, but the memory of those terrifying nights stayed with them. Dog was more than just an animal. He was a hero. After the terrifying incident, life in the Willowbrook household seemed to return to normal, or at least as normal as it could be. Dog, the family pet, was back to his cheerful self, wagging his tail and playing with Emily in the backyard. The growling had stopped, and the shadowy figure was never seen again. But the family couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. Emily, though no longer plagued by nightmares, would occasionally glance over her shoulder, as if sensing a presence that wasn't there. Her parents noticed her lingering unease and tried to reassure her, but deep down, they too felt a lingering dread. Jake, who had witnessed the shadowy figure firsthand, became more protective of his little sister, often staying up late to keep an eye on her room. Dog, however, seemed to sense something the humans couldn't. He would often sit by the window, staring into the darkness, his ears perked up as if listening to something far away. Sometimes he would let out a soft whine, a sound that sent chills down the spines of anyone who heard it. One evening, as the family was having dinner, there was a knock at the door. The sound was so unexpected that everyone froze. Dog, who had been lying at Emily's feet, immediately stood up, his fur bristling. He let out a low growl, the same growl they hadn't heard since that fateful night Jake, being the eldest, went to answer the door. Standing on the porch was a tall, thin man with piercing blue eyes and a long, dark coat. His presence was unsettling, and Jake felt an immediate sense of unease. "Good evening," the man said, his voice smooth but cold. "I'm Dr. Alistair Crane. I couldn't help but notice that there's been some unusual activity in this house." The family exchanged confused glances. How could this stranger know about what had happened? Before anyone could respond, Dog let out a fierce bark, lunging toward the door. The man took a step back, his expression unreadable. "I see your pet is quite protective," Dr. Crane said, his eyes narrowing. "May I come in? I believe I can help." Reluctantly, the family allowed him inside. Dog continued to growl, his eyes never leaving the stranger. Dr. Crane took a seat in the living room, his gaze sweeping the room as if searching for something. "You've been experiencing strange occurrences, haven't you?" he asked, his tone matter-of-fact. "Shadows moving where they shouldn't, nightmares, and of course, your pet's unusual behavior." Emily's parents nodded, their curiosity piqued. "How do you know all this?" Jake asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Crane smiled faintly. "Let's just say I have a unique expertise in these matters. What you're dealing with is not of this world. It's a presence, a malevolent force that has attached itself to your home and to your daughter." The room fell silent. Emily clutched her mother's hand, her eyes wide with fear. Dog, still growling, positioned himself between Emily and the stranger. Dr. Crane explained that the shadowy figure was a spirit drawn to the house by an ancient curse. He claimed that the only way to rid the family of this entity was to perform a ritual, a cleansing of sorts. The family, desperate for a solution, agreed. The ritual was set to take place at midnight, the witching hour. Dr. Crane instructed the family to gather in the living room with Dog by their side. He placed candles around the room, each one representing a different element: earth, air, fire, and water. In the center of the circle, he placed a small, ornate box. As the clock struck 12, Dr. Crane began to chant in a language none of the family understood. The candles flickered and the room grew colder. Dog's growls grew louder, his body tense as if ready to attack. Suddenly, the shadowy figure appeared, its form more defined than before. It loomed over Emily, its hollow eyes filled with malice. Jux Crane's voice rose, his chants becoming more urgent. He opened the box, revealing a strange glowing crystal. The shadowy figure let out a piercing scream, its form dissolving into smoke. The crystal absorbed the smoke and the room fell silent. With the ritual complete, the family felt a sense of relief. Jux Crane assured them that the spirit was gone for good, but as he prepared to leave, Jake noticed something strange. Dog was still growling, his eyes fixed on Dr. Crane. "Wait," Jake said, his voice trembling. "If the spirit is gone, why is Dog still growling?" Dr. Crane paused, his back to the family. Slowly he turned around, his face twisted into a sinister smile. "Because, my dear boy," he said, his voice dripping with malice, "the spirit was never the real threat." Before anyone could react, Dr. Crane lunged toward Emily, his hands outstretched. Dog leapt into action, tackling the man to the ground. The family watched in horror as Dr. Crane's form began to shift, his human disguise melting away to reveal the true monster beneath. The creature was unlike anything the family had ever seen. Its body was a mass of shadows, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Dog, undeterred, fought with all his might, his growls echoing through the house. The family scrambled to help, grabbing whatever they could to defend themselves. In the chaos, Jake remembered the glowing crystal. He grabbed it from the box and held it up, the light piercing through the darkness. The creature let out a deafening roar, its form disintegrating under the crystal's power. With one final, desperate lunge, it disappeared, leaving behind only a faint wisp of smoke. The family was left shaken but alive. Dog, though injured, wagged his tail weakly, his eyes filled with love and loyalty. They realized that Dr. Crane had been the true threat all along, a shape-shifting entity that had used the spirit as a distraction to get close to Emily. From that day on, the family cherished Dog more than ever. He wasn't just a pet. He was their protector, their hero. The house was finally at peace, and the nightmares were gone for good.